All right, let's start the points of the Dragon Wing Cowl. And you can see that I'm almost out of my first skein of yarn. And I didn't want to make this any smaller. If I made it smaller, then I could have made it a one skein project, but I didn't want to. If I made the straight section any smaller, then it would be kind of tight around the neck and the wing section would start too soon. And if I made the wing section any shorter, then I don't think there would be enough of the wing section, okay? So especially on somebody, you know, I'm a larger size, and if I had made this wing section much shorter, then it would just be way too short on me. Someone who's a smaller size could maybe get away with it because they have, you know, less body to show off the wing. But on me, you know, it would be like, you know, a butterfly wing, not a dragon wing. So, a fairy dragon wing. But anyway, you can try adjusting the pattern to make it shorter if you want it to be a one skein project. But honestly, if you're going to go through everything to make this Dragon Wing Cowl, just pony up for the second skein of yarn. It's not that expensive, and it's a great yarn. You will find something awesome to do with the rest of it, okay? So go for it. Have fun. Buy the yarn. All right, let's make these points. And I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to remember where I am without having the pattern next to me here. You can also, if you're doing this on the computer, go ahead and use your, row counter, whatever works for you. I just printed out this section so that I can keep track of where I am and remember what the pattern is so that I don't mess up when I'm telling you how to do things. We're going to, as always, start with a slip one purlwise with yarn in front. And then we're going to knit past the first two markers. So there is one, there is two, and now we're going to knit 9 and then wrap and turn. 1, 9, and then for the wrap and turn, what you're doing is you pull the yarn in front, you slip this stitch over as if you're purling, so you just slip it right over without doing any sort of twist, and you pull the yarn back, and then you put the stitch right back where it came from. Okay, so all you're doing is wrapping that yarn around the stitch without turning or twisting that stitch in any way. And then you turn your work. Okay? Now we need to knit across for row 2, which means I need to get the yarn behind my needles, and I'm going to knit across. There you go, rows 1 and 2. Now row 3, we slip the first stitch purlwise, and then we're going to knit past the first two markers, knit past the first two markers, and then knit 7 wrap and turn. 1, 7, yarn in front, slip the stitch, yarn in back, put the stitch back, and turn. Then we need to knit across, so I'm putting the yarn into the back again, and knit across. Okay, so that was row 3 and row 4. Now, row 5, you do the same, rows 5 and 6 are the same, only you knit 5, wrap in 2, and then for row 7, you knit 3, wrap in 2, and for row 9, you knit just 1, wrap in 2, wrap and turn. So for row 9, you slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front, knit past 2 markers, knit 1, wrap and turn. And then for row 10, you're knitting across. So go ahead and get all the way through row 10, and then we will come back here and start with row 11. We have completed row 10. Let me mark them all off. All right, and this is actually a great place to add on my new skein of yarn, because you can see it's pretty much the first one I used is pretty much gone at this point. And it's always a good plan to start and end yarn at the end of a row when you're working in rows. And it's really easy to hide them with this particular pattern. All right, so now, oh, and if you do this, do not get ahead of yourself and weave in these ends. If you try to weave in the end before you've done the Jacob's ladder section, before you've dropped and redone your stitches, you may accidentally mess something up so that it doesn't drop properly. Remember at the beginning when I said the 3 stitches in between the stitch markers? All these stitch markers have 3 stitches in between them. You can't do anything to those or you will not be able to do the Jacob's ladder section. So don't weave in these ends until after you've done the Jacob's ladder section. If it's starting to loosen up on you and it's really bothering you, one of the things I will sometimes do is tie a granny knot or square knot really loosely, just a right over left, left over right, just a loose knot, okay? Don't pull it super tight or anything. And by tying that loose knot, it holds my yarn, it keeps my yarn from making really big loops on the end, but when I'm ready to weave in my ends, I can untie it and then weave in my ends because I don't want to leave that knot there in my final piece. It just keeps everything a little neater. Okay, so feel free to do that, but do not weave in the ends until after you've done the Jacob's ladder section or you will be very sad. Alrighty, row 11. We are going to knit past 4 markers. Well, first we're going to slip 1 purlwise, okay, and then knit past 4 markers. Now we've come to our first wrap and turn. So let me get this up where you can see things neatly. What I do for those wrap and turns, there are various techniques to this. I first take the stitch that's been wrapped, I slip it over here, and then I use my left needle to pull that stitch up and kind of over, and then get them both back on the left needle. So what I have now on my left needle, and I'll show it again on the next one, is I have the stitch and then the wrap, and then I knit into it. So let me show you that again. Here's the next stitch that I knit into. Now here, some people say you just want to grab the loop, but I can't really do it without going this way. Okay, so there's the next knit stitch, and then here is my next wrap stitch. I move the wrapped stitch onto my right needle. I pick up this loop, slide it onto the right needle, and it's still crossed over, right? But that's okay. I now grab the stitch and then the loop. By the time I get them back onto the left needle, they are clearly separated, right? Looks like I split that yarn. There we go. They are clearly separated there. Okay, so I'm going to knit those 2 together, and then I'm going to zoom in this camera. Give me a second. Sorry for the shaky. Okay, let's try that again. We knit the next stitch because it is not wrapped. And now this is a wrap and turn. So I slip that stitch over to my right needle, and then I pick up the wrapped part. Okay, I pick up the wrapped part, I slip the wrap onto the right needle, and then with my left needle, I just pick up the stitch, and then I pick up the wrap, and now they are both on my left needle, and I knit into both of them. All right, there we go. And I think is there one more wrapped stitch? Yes, there's one more wrapped stitch. So we'll do that one more time. Slip the wrapped stitch onto my right needle, pick up the wrap with my left needle, place it onto the right needle, and then grab the stitch with my left needle, grab the wrap with my left needle. Now both of those, the stitch and the wrap, are both on the left needle, and I'm going to knit them together. Okay, Oh, there's still one more. I wasn't counting. So, and you can kind of see, like you can tell by this little space here, right? You can see that this stitch has been yanked, kind of. It's been pulled because of that wrap. So make sure you get them all. Knit into the next stitch, and then pick up the wrap by slipping the stitch onto the right needle. Pick up the wrap, slide that onto the right needle. Use the left needle to grab just the stitch, and then use the left needle to grab just the wrap, and then knit them both together. All right, and then I look, and yes, that was the last of my wrap stitches. So now I'm going to continue knitting. Let me move this, oops, wrong direction, sorry about that. I know it shakes when I do it. Okay, so now we are going to knit past 2 more because we needed to knit past 4 markers, right? So far we'd only knit past 2. So we need to keep going. And 4. Now once we have knit past 4 markers and pulled our hair out of our knitting, we are going to knit 9, wrap, and turn. 9, and then wrap, and turn. And turn, okay? And now, for that was row 11. Now for row 12, we're going to knit past 2 markers, wrap and turn. So I've got my yarn in the back again. I'm going to knit past 2 markers. 2, then knit 9, wrap and turn. 1, 9, wrap and turn. Now I have my yarn in the back again. Knit past 2 markers, knit 7, wrap and turn. So now what we're going to do, we're going to knit past 2 markers, knit 7, wrap and turn twice, and then knit past 5, knit past 2 markers, knit 5, wrap and turn twice, and then again with 3, and then with 1. So after we have gotten through row 20, which is the second time that we knit past 2 markers, knit 1, wrap and turn, then we will come back here for row 21. Okay, so I did that wrap and turn at the end of row 20. And now for rows 21 through 40, I'm repeating rows 11 through 20 2 times. Only when I repeat row 11, I'm not going to start off with a slip one. Okay, so to repeat row 11, I'm just going to knit past 4 markers, but I need to work into the wraps when I get to them. So that was 1 marker, and now here is the second marker. Okay. And now I'm getting to wraps. Alrighty, and let's see. We've got this one. We're just going to work into these wraps as we get to them. Same way as before. We're going to keep going until we've gone past 4 markers. So far, we've only gone past 2. 4. All right, now we knit 9, wrap and turn. Wrap and turn. Okay, get my yarn in the back because we're going to knit next. All right, and now we're going to keep on repeating. So now we will knit past 2 markers, knit 9, wrap and turn, knit past 2, knit 7, wrap and turn, knit past 2, knit 7, wrap and turn, knit past 2, knit 5, 5, 3, 3, 1, 1. And then repeat again to go past these 2, and then we will come back here for row 41. Okay, so finish this repeat, then repeat once more and come back here for row 41. But you can see now, if we just slide over, you can certainly do this with straight needles. I just prefer to use the round needles, and you can see that we've got these nice little points that are going to become a little bit more pointy when we block them. So come back here for row 41. So I completed through row 40, and now I'm on row 41 where I am knitting across all the way just to the other end of the row, and I'm currently picking up these wraps that happened in my last set of repeats to make the point on this little side here, that little point there. So I'm just picking up these wraps, and I'm going to keep on knitting all the way to the end of this row, and then we will be able to make the half point that is on this end of the cowl. It looks like that was, yes, that was the last of my pickups. So now I just keep on knitting straight across. So now for row 42, I'm going to go back to the slip one purlwise with yarn in front to start this row, since I'm back at the edge of my work, and then knit past 2 markers, knit 9, wrap and turn. So this whole little section here is going to be very similar to when we first started. We're going to knit past 2 markers, knit 9, wrap and turn, 9, and then let's do the wrap and the turn. And then we're going to just knit to the end again, and then we will, that's just a little loose, there we go. And then we will slip 1 purlwise, knit past 2 markers, knit 7, wrap and turn, knit all the way back, and then do that again, only doing 5, then 3, then 1. And after we knit past 2 markers, knit 1, wrap and turn, knit all the way back. That is when we will come back here to do a little bit more of the finishing. I finished row 51, and now we're going to do the finishing, the part where we're going to drop some stitches. It gets really exciting and fun here. Okay, so now that we've done these short rows, the first thing we're going to do is find the other end of my needle. You get lost in your needles sometimes too. All right, so this row is going to be dropping some stitches and also picking up those last sets of wrapped stitches. Everything on the left side, all of the wrapped stitches on the left side of the sets of 3 stitches still have not been picked up. We picked up all the ones on the right side, just not all the ones on the left sides. So we're going to kind of do 2 things at once. First, we're going to slip the first stitch purlwise, and then knit to the first marker. Okay, so we're knitting to the next marker. We're dropping that marker, taking that marker off. We're dropping the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Just drop them right off the needle. Don't worry if they start to run, because we're going to make them all run. So it's totally fine if they start to run. Just drop them off, ignore them. Nothing bad is going to happen to them. Yarn over, and then slip the next marker. Now we're going to knit to the next marker, making sure to pick up any of our wraps along the way. Okay, and don't worry that some of these stitches are going to feel a little loose after the dropped stitches. That will get worked out in the end. Don't stress. There we go. Just pick up your dropped stitches, pick up your wrapped stitches, and knit to the next marker. Okay, here is the next marker. We are going to remove the marker. And again, this is another time when it's really nice if you had done 2 different color markers, 1 on each side of the sets of 3, because you know, in this case, I know I'm always removing the green markers. Then I drop my 3 stitches, I yarn over, and I slip the marker. And now again, I'm going to knit to the next marker, picking up any of my wrap stitches as I knit across. And I'm just going to repeat that. I'm going to knit to the next marker, picking up any wrap stitches, and then remove that marker, drop the 3 stitches, yarn over, and slip the next marker. And just keep doing that until I get to the very end of the row. All right, so let's do that and then meet back at the end of the row. So now we are knitting across. I'm going to slip the marker purlwise with my yarn in front, and then I'm going to knit across. All right, when I get to the marker, I slip the marker. When I get to the yarn over, I'm actually going to knit through the back loop of the yarn over, which will give it a little twist and make it more of a loop instead of just a bump. Instead of a hill, it actually twists. All right, so that's all we're doing for this row. You are just knitting across. When you get to the marker, slip the marker. When you get to the yarn overs that will be directly after every single marker, you knit those through the back loop. And we're just going to complete this row in that manner. And then when we get to the end of this row, we will rejoin. Let's get to one more yarn over here before I let you go, just to show you that one more time, so you don't have to hit rewind if you didn't quite catch it the first time. All right, since we're almost there. Okay, there's the one more stitch here. I'm going to slip my marker, and now I'm just going to knit through the back loop and knit. And then just keep knitting across. And let's do all of that, get to the end of this row, and then we will meet up for some really fun stuff. Okay, I have now finished that row. Now, this is the point where if you're using a straight needle, I definitely recommend circular needles for this, but if you are using a straight needle, or if your circular needles aren't quite long enough and everything's getting really close to the edges and stressing you out, you'll want to put those point protectors on the end to make sure that nothing slides off your needles. Okay, definitely one on the end if you're using a straight needle. If you're using circulars, you can do that if you want to. If you have the interchangeables, you can take the points off and put the stoppers on here if you want to. Since I'm using circulars that are long enough to not stress me out, I'm just moving my work to the wire section so that my needles are free and I'm not in danger of losing either side of my work. Okay, and now what we're going to do is drop our stitches, and this is a little bit time consuming. You just want to drop all of these stitches, okay? And you need to drop all 3 of these stitches as you go down. And if at some point you're going and you notice that you're only dropping 2, just kind of look up, just work up. So sometimes what happens is one of them gets stuck. I'm going to kind of make that happen purposefully here, okay? So here you see I'm like, oh no, I'm only doing 2. So I'm going to look up and I'm like, okay, this side looks pretty good. But then I look on this side and I say, oh look, I just missed that one there. And then it didn't keep dropping because I missed it up here. And now I'm going to go find it. Now, as long as you've been following that rule with the markers, where those 3 stitches in between every set of 2 markers were only ever knit, there was never anything done to those 3 stitches, you held that space in between each set of markers sacred and never did anything funky in there, then you should be fine. You should always have 3 stitches to drop. Okay, see, that one got caught, so now I'm just going to go back. The only time that I've ever seen these get to the point where they will not drop is if there was an increase or something done in one of these stitches, which would happen if you worked where you weren't supposed to. What does happen when you're dropping quickly sometimes is there was a little bit where you kind of caught here. I don't know if you can really see, there's just a little bit of fuzz caught, and you can just clip that with some super sharp scissors or just kind of give it a little tug, either way. But there shouldn't be any problem in dropping these, and you'll get into a zone with the dropping where it can go pretty quickly, but still at the end of the day, this is a little bit of a time-consuming process, dropping all of these stitches. And I'm down to, there we go. See, I'm down to 2 again. So yeah, it's a little bit of a time-consuming process dropping all of the stitches, but you need to drop all of the sets of 3 stitches, all 5 of the sets of 3 stitches. So do that, and you're going to go all the way through the cast on. All right, that's why we did the long tail cast on, because it does actually drop, and when it drops, both pieces of yarn that drop are pretty even, are basically the same length. There's a little bit of difference, but not enough to really cause any sort of problem with the pattern. So drop all the way down through the cast on with all 5 sets of 3 dropped stitches, and then come back and we will make our little Jacob's ladder rib sections. All right.